Hello and welcome to the Caffeinated Business Report, your number one source for anything relating to business, AI, and whatever else we decide to get our hands into. I'm your host, Chase, joined by my co-host, Craig, who also happens to be my father, which may be why we look the same if you're watching this on video. And today's topic, we're going to be talking about AI, something that my dad and I both share just a fervent, nerdy, just obsession over. It's definitely taken up a lot of our free time when it comes to just playing around with tools. But today we're going to be talking about AI as far as it goes in the business landscape and then the overall landscape, what the future looks like. Pretty much anything and everything relating to AI and its usability and practicality of use. That's what we're going to be talking about. So, Father, I'm going to start with the question posed to you to get things rolling. How is AI reshaping the way businesses operate, and what does it mean for our future?
Good question. And that's a question that gets asked an awful lot these days. Uh, I think we really should start with what is AI. And, a lot of people are of the opinion that AI is, relatively new. It's been around since the 60s. I mean, basic machine learning and pattern recognition has been around for decades. Actually, even before I got involved, well, before the internet even started. There was a company in Tampa called Catalina. I remember they were doing predictive modeling, and that was all machine learning. So my point to that is this AI revolution. It's more of a renaissance, if you will, because there was just this long gap of just a lot of false starts. And what's been interesting is how many of, especially my age group and my peers, who are of the well, they're of the opinion that AI is going to do everything for them, and what they really don't understand is what AI really is. I mean, most of them look at it as a friend of ours puts it as automatic information instead of artificial intelligence, and it is automatic information. And in fact, it reminds me of the search engine wars. That's how I cut my teeth in technology back in the late '90s, getting involved with all the different search engines. Google wasn't even a thought yet, and I'm looking at the different platforms and the automated information that those search engines provided, and now looking at what we have today, it's just amazing. And I would say, if there's one big thing that I would caution or advise everyone on, and I do mean everyone, is it regardless of what position you have and what company you have, and I'm speaking on the business side, no matter what, AI will affect you in the next, if it hasn't already, it will have a significant effect on what you're doing today in the next few months, let alone the next couple of years. You can take that with a small grain of salt if you're digging ditches, but then again, if you're digging ditches, you may not have a job in a few more months because of automated services. Maybe that's not the greatest example, but it doesn't matter. Is the point? AI is touching every industry with some level of machine learning and on automated information that's being translated into artificial intelligence to most. I don't know
Yeah,
if that
well,
answers the question, but that's at least a good place that I think we should probably start.
no, absolutely. I mean, because that's kind of like the main thing that, at least that I see online, is people freaking out about the fact that it's going to replace their jobs, right? And then people will post about like, oh, use these 10 tools to replace your lawyer or your doctor or your engineer or your fill in the blank, and it's definitely really cool to see how smart, in quotes, AI has gotten in its way to kind of just take a lot of information and consolidate it in ways that are not only digestible but in ways that actually make sense, and it's getting better and better at doing that. um, but even though it's doing that, I don't know if I totally buy in with the idea that it's going to just replace everybody. Because even when the internet came around, it didn't just replace everybody. There was still human oversight that's needed in order for it to work. So, looking into AI kind of for the job market and just business as a whole, on one hand, yes, it could replace your job, but on the other hand, I think it could help you really differentiate yourself in the marketplace too. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Definitely can differentiate yourself in the marketplace, even if it's just automating tasks. I mean, the efficiency that you have differentiates you. That in itself is a differentiator. But yeah, no, I would agree with that as far as a general statement. I mean, there really aren't too many positions that I can think of that aren't going to have a significant effect. But to your point, that doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to go away. They may change in how they do things. I mean, I know, you and I have had multiple conversations over the last couple of years. I mean, we were building taxonomies, and by hand with Excel spreadsheets, 20 years ago, trying to create the basics of a taxonomy for search indexing. And, today that's a press of a button. And that took us months on end to do in the past. So my point to it is even though, to your point, you would still need a human overseeing a project that may be building out a taxonomy. But the the interaction that's really needed is far less and very different than what it was 20 years ago. So at any rate, it may not replace things, but it's definitely going to change the way people do things. There's no doubt.
So, what are some of those ways that you think that it will change things? I know we utilize a lot of AI in our companies, like with ERC, making, even just like the sales follow up sequence, automating that and actually tailoring it to the individuals based on utilizing AI based on the inputs. I mean, what other ways do you think businesses could really utilize AI in a practical sense? Because I feel like there is this kind of mentality of like, oh, it's this huge thing that I'll never be able to understand and I'm just going to get left behind. But there are easier kind of use cases for it. So what are some of those use cases you think that small businesses, medium sized businesses, whatever, can utilize to, whether it's cut back on time spent in the business or to increase revenue, whatever it might be?
I think it's a great question, and I'd like to ask you that same question. So I'll start, but what's going to be interesting is to hear the different perspectives, because you're growing up eating technology, and I grew up creating or part of a team that had to create some of the things that you just guys, that your age group just consumes with no issues. We were trying to figure out what the recipe was. So it's an interesting. Well, you know what? I'm going to stop before I give my older, more seasoned answer. I'm going to ask you the same question. What do you think? I mean, outside of the basic chat bot, or maybe it is chat bots. Maybe that's where we start. But what do you think from your perspective?
I mean, it can help a lot with just any sort of mundane creation tasks, right? So, like, for example, social media creation, right? Social media posts, social media captions, whatever. I would caution, though, when going about that process of having it just create content, whatever kind of written form it is, that there needs to be a kind of a standard implemented ahead of time, right? Because just having, relying on these different models to create content, okay, it can do it in seconds, but having it create effective content, that's different. If you want it to sound a specific way, you want it to hit a specific pain point, you want it to talk to a specific person, you're going to need to feed it, right? So, like, something I've been doing on LinkedIn, for example, I've been posting on there consistently for probably about 3 weeks again. I'm back on it again, and probably about 3 weeks now. I spend little to no time actually creating the content because I have ChatGPT make it, but I took the time to actually feed it like dozens and dozens and dozens of posts to match a specific type of formula I wanted it to have. Instead of me taking the time to try to replicate that formula and write it over and over and over again, which is still beneficial so you don't lose the skill set, being able to give it that knowledge base ahead of time so it has the formula to write things in the way that I want them written as if I did write them. That is really, really important. It's kind of like I think it's Abraham Lincoln when asked, like, how do you chop down I think it was Abraham Lincoln. How do you chop down a tree in 20 minutes? You spend 19 minutes sharpening the axe and 1 minute cutting down the tree. So it's kind of how, as far as like utilizing AI in sort of any of those generative scenarios, most common is going to be social media posts, spending an inordinate amount of time teaching it how you want things to actually flow and work so that you can get the outcome that you actually want and need. Because at this point, there's so many people that just like, hey, write this post. And you go on any social media site that's mainly text based, and it's just garbage. It's just the same jargon over and over and over. And you can point it out super quick. And being able to teach it ahead of time, like, hey, I don't want it to look like anything like this. I want it to be boom, 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 boom. You get something way different that really stands out from the rest. So I think that's one use case that's really important, that businesses can utilize, so they don't spend all that time creating content. They just spend the time creating the framework that the tool can now utilize to create the content.
Makes a lot of sense. I mean, that's going a little self promotion here for our business. Neuro is and neuro.is is an AI agency that's doing exactly what you just stated, which is helping people understand how to put things in context that it's relatable and relevant to them specifically. Some people call that prompt engineering or things of that nature, but nevertheless, it really does come down to how do you Well, how do you train your large language model so that it recognizes and replicates what your thoughts and your expressions would be versus what the masses may be? In fact, to your point, I mean, I just read something this morning, had AI written all over it. I mean, I could tell just by the use of some of the language, you could that's fine. The biggest problem I think that, and maybe this is more for my generation because we're this is a great tool, but not necessarily realizing some of the pitfalls, such as something so well written halfway through may have something that's completely erroneous right in the middle because the AI didn't quite capture the intent or the potential sentiment of why you were asking something, or even worse, it just made it up. So hallucinations, which is something that's very well known in AI in the AI world. I think there are both pros and cons, if you will. But the biggest thing I would I guess advise people on is understanding it. Just because you have tools that can communicate for you doesn't mean they should.
Hmm.
And more importantly, and you know this very well because I've said it to you, and well, I've said it to everyone since you were born, and that is words matter, but syntax is everything. And my point to that is you do need to choose your words carefully, but how people understand and use those exact same words differently is equally important. So you have to make sure that you're training AI to do what you want it to do, not just because, well, it has the capabilities of answering questions in a more robust manner. No, you need to make sure you take the time and train.
Yeah. I mean, it really comes down to the fact that the skill set isn't even related to technology in order to be able to use the
Yeah,
technology well. It's using your brain. I mean, we've talked about it a ton. It's can you think clearly and can you communicate well? That's it. It's literally
that's
the essence of it, which is wild that a lot of people can't do that. And then especially now that I've seen a couple of studies on this now. Now that people are utilizing AI like for everything, like to your point, you shouldn't use it for everything. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. A lot of people are using it to think for them. So now, most people's ability to think critically has started to atrophy. If you don't use it, you lose it. And now there's instances where students are graduating from their bachelor programs going into grad school programs. I don't know if they're not allowed to use computers or something. I don't understand how that works, but their test scores are just garbage. And it happened just around the same time that all these different large language models started to get a little bit smarter because they could pull all this information, whether or not they got the right information based off of hallucinations or whether or not it was able to compile everything together. Or I remember in the first few months of really using ChatGPT, you couldn't get a huge output. So it was like it was giving you chunks of a document, and every single chunk could have had a different, I don't know, some sort of process along the line. So it kind of changes the format and the tone all the way through. So you start getting those erroneous little errors in the middle. So you still have to, even though AI can do a lot of things and it's smart, that's why I believe there still has to be a ton of human oversight on top of it, because it's not like it's perfect. It doesn't have all the context. Even if you give it a ton of context, you're probably still not giving it all the context because you don't really consciously know all the context, because a lot of it may be subconscious. So it's like the whole AI thing is, it really comes down to, can you think well and can you communicate clearly? And that's my take. That's how I see AI and AI usage in the future. So if people can learn how to think and learn how to speak, they're good.
No, I completely agree with you. If you can't articulate your point clearly so other people understand you, then you've got a challenge. There's no
Yeah.
doubt about that. But what's really interesting now is getting into some of the AI agents that can autonomously, operate in your absence and accomplish tasks. And that is where your point of communicating clearly and articulating what it is that you really want is it's everything. What's interesting is to see some of the companies that are progressive and trying to inject off the shelf AI solutions, whether it be a chatbot, something that simple, or whether it be autofills when someone should have a certain information, like you can plug brief descriptions of a business in. Well, the challenge is I could have a car wash business, and you would think a car wash is pretty much the same everywhere. Oh no, it really isn't. There are different types of car washes, believe it or not. There's actually some that can get this stuff that they I guess they have salt on the road somewhere. I'm in Florida. I don't have any salt on my roads, and so there's no need for an undercarriage spray. My point to it is there's different ways, and these large language models, they all have their own personalities, their own biases, and they have their, well, candidly, they have their own intentions in some cases. So you do have to be careful, and you do have to make sure that you're not just putting something in place because, well, you think you can. You have to make sure that you're very conscious of what you're doing, but more importantly, that not only that you put the right tool in, but going back all the way to your point, that you've trained it appropriately and you've used the words and the instructions very clearly. So I think you're right. It's becoming less of a developer's world than it is a critical thinking world. And that's unfortunately, it's kind of like common sense. Critical thinking and common sense, neither one of them are all that common these days.
Love it. Which
Yeah,
makes you significantly more valuable if you go learn those skill sets. Thus,
it
you get to
does.
keep your job.
It does. It does. It does.
Yeah. Well, so go back. You mentioned briefly, but going back into like biases, right? Because I know I actually had a conversation with a gentleman the other day about he'd asked whether or not AI has a bias, and I would love your. I know we've briefly talked about it, but I'd love your take further on like, does AI generally have a bias? What is it? How is it formed? And how do you go about navigating that bias to protect against it or to utilize it to its fullest?
Well, I think, yeah, I relate everything to search engine wars because I kind of cut my teeth during that time. And I can remember this is pre Google, telling people, well, use this search engine. If you're looking for this type of deal, use this for commercial, this for information, because they all had different biases, if you will, based on the programmers that developed them. So there were better searches for commercially based searches. It was interesting when we launched what was arguably the first local business pay-per-click search engine or pay-per-position at the time, back in 1996, I think it was. We were looking at different words and what people were searching for, and what was interesting is to see someone might type in Jaguar as an example. Well, okay. Well, did they want a car? Did they want the animal? Were they looking for a zoo? What was the context? So back then, there were different search engines that would say, well, it must be a business because they're searching a business category. Well, kind of the same scenario now. I think some of these, platforms, these large language platforms, especially these derivative platforms that are popping up all over the place off of the primary platforms, they all have slight biases based on whoever created or the company that created that first master prompt, if you will. And some of the data as it's being aggregated gets weighted differently. So if you're not familiar with weighted data, we can get into that on another episode, but you have different variables, and depending on what's important to you, give it a higher weight. So point being is when you look at some of the large language models, if you're not very clear on what you want from that model, and equally you don't know how that model's actually been built and what kind of biases it has with the data, you could literally wind up digging a hole that you didn't mean to dig at all. You were trying to create something else, but that's not the tool. So it's kind of like using I kind of akin related to trying to use a hammer for a screw. And does it work? Well, yeah, you can probably bang the thing in there, but boy, if you just had a drill and zipped it right in, piece of cake. So it's using the right tools in the right time. And I think there's a big opportunity for people looking for careers. I think there's a big opportunity for people in my age group that may be looking to sustain themselves, if you will, or grow with a company, not necessarily ready to check out, but in communicating, problem solving, and communicating. Don't worry about the technology. The technology is going to take care of you. You just need to make sure that you can articulate yourself very well.
Hmm.
So that's kind of my overview on it.
Well, so when it comes to doing that, articulating yourself well and being able to communicate well with whether it's just the tool or your team, what are some things that because you've run some pretty big teams in your time, what have been some of those things that you've been able to utilize or tactics or strategies that have helped you articulate what you need to get across to your team or to the technology that you're working with?
Well, since you are my son, you know that this is the case on the back of my computer for the last at least 15, if not 20 years. I've had a saying on there that a gentleman said to me and said clearly so people understand your goals exactly as you see them. And I'll say that again, speak clearly so that people can see your goals exactly as you see them. So, in other words, be able to make sure, I hope I'm answering the question you're asking, but really that's what it comes down to is being able to be comfortable that you can articulate yourself well enough that people can get that same visual image that you can. If you can do that and you're adopt storytelling, as an example, if you can do that well and articulate so someone can actually get a good visual, mental visual, you're doing fantastic. And that's what I would, that's what we do advise people on now. Tell me what success looks like. Those are the words I use. And that word is very intentional. What does success look like to you? And I have people, as you know, we'll have people describe exactly the scenario and what the company looks like, what they're doing. And next thing you know, they're saying, well, I think it's, oh, well, maybe I really want that. And they start realizing that, wow, I really didn't think this through yet. And that's really
Hmm.
helpful.
Yeah, it's amazing how you can just like take a minute and you might get some more clarity.
Absolutely. Well, so tell me from your perspective. So, I have had the privilege of working with some incredible people and some incredible organizations, but being younger, and you're also running some very, very incredible organizations, but you have a different mindset coming in. You don't quite have the fears that maybe someone my age group or maybe a little older may have going into technology. I mean, obviously you and I do this all day, but tell me from your perspective in your age group, I mean, what are some of the pitfalls? What are some of the things that you think you need to really focus on to be successful with AI?
With AI. I mean, because at least from what I can observe, when it comes to older generations, the gap really comes to the adoption of a technology. When it comes to the younger generations, it comes to the adoption of a soft skill. So I think that's where the difference may lie, because the hard skills are very easy for younger individuals to pick up. I mean, even like with Nathan, my step nephew, your step grandson. He knows how to use an iPhone. He's 3. He knows how to navigate it and use the apps and do the picture and do a timer. It's like I didn't know how to do that when I was 3, but he knows how to pick it up instantly. So the hard skills of utilizing a technology are just, it's kind of becoming almost just automatic, habitual. But now it comes down to the soft skills, because there is that over reliance on the technology to kind of do all the things for you, and that's where, if you don't use it, you lose it, kind of comes into play again. How do you teach all the soft skills that we didn't have the opportunity to develop on our, through the school of hard knocks? Because like we have all this technology to give us the answers immediately, we don't have the time to actually fail and to actually learn the lesson deeply enough to be able to go out and do things. There's a bunch of comedians that make jokes of like, you take a phone out of a 20-something-year-old's hand and makes it looks like that you just hit them with a brick because they don't know what to do, because they didn't have the environment to develop the soft skill of just communication and just being around people. So I think that's where the divide is. Technology kind of split the older generations with soft skills, and they're having tough time with the hard skills. Whereas with the younger generations, they have a really good time with the hard skills, but the soft skills are where they lack. So if the younger generation can really take the time to focus on storytelling or communication or empathy, all of these soft skills, I think they'll have a much better time in utilizing the technology that they can just habitually use. Whereas older individuals, just all you got to learn is a manual. Because you have the soft skills, you grew up with the soft skills. So if anything, I think older individuals will have a much easier time in utilizing AI in the correct ways than the younger audience as well, because they have been deprived of some of those soft skills that they need in order to use it effectively.
Wow, very insightful, and I agree. That's interesting. I agree because I get to watch it. It's at times because obviously I get to work with you and Kristen, who's our other partner, and you guys are roughly in the same age group. And yeah, that's actually really that's a very interesting position. I agree with you. So
Thanks.
how would you suggest for your generation to overcome that challenge?
Get out of the house.
Put the damn phone down and don't use AI.
Put the phone down. I mean, like, I've had to do this. I've had to learn how to do all this. And it's like, yeah, so on one hand, it's, if you're going to use AI, first stop and say, do I need to use this, or do I not have to use this? If you don't have to use it, I just wouldn't use it. If it's out of just comfort, convenience, it's a waste of your time. If that's out of a need for convenience because you have to accomplish an objective, cool, go for it. But just getting out of the house, get around people. I'd say delete social media off your phone. I used to just sit there and scroll forever, and all these different social media sites are designed for the phone. They know you're not going to use it on the computer because it's way too clunky on a computer. They know you're going to use it on the phone because you have your phone with you everywhere you go. Take it off your phone. You don't, your friends don't need to know you had a panini for lunch. You can post it later if you want. And I mean, like I've even noticed like going to different places, like, oh, I can't wait to put this on my story. Why? Why do I care? I want to see this thing instead of just live, do your thing. So like I get out of the house, go touch grass. That's literally the biggest thing. Get around people.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's the case for everyone. I mean, like you said, though, I mean, I think my generation is definitely, well, because we were forced to actually have conversations. But yeah, I can see your point, how my generation actually may take to AI a little, or at least leveraging AI in the appropriate manner a little quicker, because we are looking for directions. And we do want to make sure that we're doing things in a certain, well, yeah, no, I can see that. I'm not articulating myself well after we just got done talking about articulating ourselves well. But you did a good job. Good job.
Thank you. Oh man, but yeah, I mean, AI is definitely. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with AI going forward in the future in business. I mean, like looking at the progression from where it was just like 2 years ago when ChatGPT 2 came out, we were freaking out about it, and now they have ChatGPT 5. As of recording this, hasn't come out yet. It's rumored to come out soon, so that's cool. Super Grok came out, Grok 4, and that's supposed to be like the best thing since sliced bread. So I mean, with the fast like growth of AI and how it's being utilized in different companies, even with AI taking over 10% of traditional SEO, right? So when we're looking at the progression of AI, what does the future look like, and how fast is it going to get here? What do you think?
Well, it's already here. And I was having a conversation with a buddy of mine a couple of years ago, and we were both from the tech space. And any rate, I think we had two different visions on how quickly things would go, and we were both wrong. He thought it was several years away. I thought it was, maybe a year away. I think it was 2 or 3 months after our conversation. A new rollout of AI came out, and when I say new rollout, there's so many different models out there and platforms now. I think at the time I was working with Claude, and they had a new rollout. I believe it was Claude, but nevertheless, it did everything we just talked about, whether or not that in that conversation, whether or not AI would be able to do X, Y, and Z. Well, within weeks of that conversation, another model came out and it could do everything we just discussed. So my point to that is, and to answer your question is, AI is here. It's already part of almost everyone, if not everyone's day-to-day activities in some form or fashion, whether they know it or not. I mean, just for small efficiency purposes, maybe where you go shop, something along those lines. But I'm of the very strong opinion, and watching what's going on with some of these new releases, that we are going to see a massive revolution. Well, we've already seen it, but in 2025 this year. And I know we only have the second half left, but I think with the new rollout that, well, Grok just came out with a new instance, and obviously GPT-5's coming out. I think we're going to start seeing things that, well, we didn't even realize was possible or were possible yet. It's, you and I were talking about this the other day. I mean, you think about Tesla, and Tesla, from my perspective, probably the strongest AI player out there. That's my own opinion. But that being said, there's a robot walking around with Grok on its head. I mean, literally. So if Grok is an all-knowing, and it's not, but obviously it's very well established large language model, and now it's walking around in literally walking around in a robot body, and it can answer just about everything. I think that alone, and it's serving in Japan right now. I mean, actually, I think you and I were talking about this the other day. I mean, how
Yeah.
many stores what didn't you tell me there was a percentage of restaurants that are being taken over
I
by AI at this?
Yeah, well, I don't know about AI, but it's I know in Japan, I don't know what the percentage is, but there's a lot of restaurants over there that usually more chain restaurants and typically found like Tokyo and pretty much just Tokyo. Everything else, not everywhere else, not so much. But utilizing robots to serve,
Huh.
it's nuts. Like just seeing the robots, like they know where the tables are, they know where the orders go, and they know which one goes to which person. It's nuts. So I mean, it's
I've always
definitely.
been impressed with the. I mean, honestly, I've always been impressed with the Japanese restaurants. The last time I was in Japan, they had a never-ending, and maybe it was AI, but it was a never-ending sushi float where it float
Oh
around.
yeah.
Hey, all I know is it kept bringing me the good stuff, so it kept floating by. Yeah, it's amazing. In Japan, excuse me, I've not been in a restaurant in Japan that was served completely by an automated bot, if you will, but it sounds amazing.
Oh yeah, so we're definitely getting to the Wall-E stage here pretty soon.
Wally, absolutely.
Oh man, yeah. So it'll be interesting to see the just the technological progression because I mean, as far fetched as something may sound today, like it's not going to be far fetched in a month. I mean, I remember you showing me the AT&T commercials from back in the day where the guy had a personal fax machine on the beach. Like that's not possible. Yeah, go take your iPhone or your iPad out to the beach and you're good. You're connected to the world. So I mean,
1980s.
I remember the first time, this is a ridiculous example, but I remember the first time I saw a vending machine that gave you pizza. Because I remember seeing it in the Jetsons as a kid. And I was like, oh my God, it exists. Like, there's a pizza machine. So if that can blow my mind, I can only imagine what else is going to just absolutely fry my brain when it comes out.
Well, having an AI agency, obviously, we're seeing an awful lot. So there's no doubt we're seeing things that most people aren't going to encounter just quite yet. But I am of the opinion that by the end of this year, there are going to be things that are going to be taken over. I'm saying that a little, maybe a little too aggressively. There are going to be some very good advances by leveraging AI and efficiencies, whether it be government work or things of that nature that definitely could use some sprucing up, to say the least. But nevertheless, anything that's monotonous or repeatable, it will be able to be adopted at least to some degree by something that's automated, whether it's AI or with just basic if then or machine learning statements or what have you. But nevertheless, by the end of 2025, I don't think there's going to be anyone in the United States that has not been touched in a material manner by AI.
So that kind of leads to an intriguing point is like because of the fact that it's evolving so fast and we're getting to higher and higher levels of utilization and the fact that it is touching everybody in a material way. And I don't remember the exact graphic, but I had seen that a lot of these models are starting to now outpace human intellect to certain degrees. Um, are we going to be able to catch up? I mean, we're going to be able to utilize AI in so many different ways, and we've seen examples where AI can work with itself. And are we going to be able to keep up and be able to utilize it to its fullest ability? Or are we now in a point where like we've kind of figured out we've reached the limitations of the human intervention?
Well, I don't want to go way down the rabbit hole necessarily. Yeah, I think some of the things that are happening in the quantum space, leveraging AI specifically, are just mind boggling. So to your point, are we going to be able to keep up with AI? Well, yes. But at the same time, is there a scenario where AI could, in the wrong hands or in the wrong usage, could be detrimental? Absolutely, already happening. I don't think I know it's already happening, whether it be cyber attacks or things of that nature that can be automated and replicated to the tune of having millions of attack bots, going after one server to try to. I mean, I know that's a little antiquated in terms of an example, but at least it gives someone a visual. I mean, automated agents just constantly trying to attack to get information. That's happening now. The good news is there are quite a few folks like yourself in your age group that are staying pretty, at least a step ahead today. And I do think that they are that I do think that there are enough checks and balances in the responsible people's hands to keep AI manageable. And I think manageable is the right word because I do think that we're getting to a point where AI is, well, it can be a little bit, it's getting a little scary. It really can, especially if you're not keeping close tabs on what your autonomous bots are doing, because there could be hallucinations. There could be, some unfortunate bad assumptions in your foundational information, if you will, that you're building off of. And if that's the case, well, then that means you're building something based on false premises. So there's all sorts of downfalls and pitfalls. It all comes back to people are going to have to be able to have problem solving capabilities and articulate themselves well so that they can train these bots so they can really be beneficial and useful.
I like it. So that kind of tailors into a lot of other questions that a lot of people might have. Was like, is it going to just take over the world? And I think you made a good example there of like the fact that yeah, even just showing the example that there has been like there's cybersecurity measures to be able to attack against the cyber attackers. Whereas before that, there was no, before like even internet, you had lockpicks, so they had to create stronger and stronger vaults. And people would, there's bad people who try to figure out how to unlock those vaults, and there's good
Right.
people who try to make it stronger. So it's like there's going to be constantly this back and forth, and it's like, could it take over the world? I mean, you look at the dark web. The dark web's already taken over the world. It is the majority of the internet, and we don't even see it. So I mean, you can only imagine what that kind of looks like on the scale of AI. I don't think it's something most people could probably comprehend, but it's there. But even then, even though that there's smart people on one side, there's smart people on the other side as well. So yeah, as long as um, people continue to develop those soft skills and just think critically and actually try to problem solve, I think, yeah, we're going to be good. And I think that's what really makes humanity stand out as a whole, is the ability to do that with a ton of subconscious context. So we'll just see if people actually keep up that skill set, and it doesn't turn into something like Idiocracy. I don't know, have you seen that movie?
Not.
Oh, it's hilarious.
Yeah.
It's a guy goes into cryo sleep or something, wakes up in the future, and everybody forgot that water is important. They water all their crops with Gatorade. Terry Crews is the president. And he takes his shirt off everywhere. It's hilarious.
Uh,
So
okay.
that's like the only real like doomsday path. It's like, okay, if you guys stop, using your brain, that's kind of where we're headed. But I don't think we're gonna have that issue.
Well, I don't know. I think there's kind of a bifurcation of in society, and this is being very serious. I think we've got an element of our society that is A, entitled, and B, just of the opinion that certain things should be done and just done for them, or I guess my point to it is I do think there's unfortunately a large percentage of the global population that's going to just push things aside, saying, yeah, well, this is just going to keep going. And that's going to create a divide between people who know how to leverage the new world, because it is a new world. But people that know how to leverage a new world and really be able to have a command of the tools. And then you're going to have people that are going to be out there with their hammers trying to bang screws in the wall. And I mean, there are plenty of people that still do it. I mean, they're trying to get, but the point is, it's the wrong tool. And so I think we're going to see a larger and larger divide in the society. And I don't know if that's necessarily the haves and have nots, excuse me. I think it really comes down to the people that are going to have work ethics and understand that, at the end of the day, you have to put time into something to really get the treasure out of it. So, you know what they say, where your time goes, your treasure goes, and where your treasure goes, your heart goes there as well. So if you're not putting the time into something, you're just expecting automatic information to do it for you, or artificial intelligence, however you want to look at it. Well, yeah, I'm sorry, pardon the expression, but you're screwed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it that kind of reminds me of I'd seen a podcast not too long ago. There's a podcast, Diary of a CEO. He's really good, Stephen Bartley. He's got a lot of great guests on there. He's done a couple of episodes with a couple different people repetitively. One of the guys is Dr. K, and they kind of talked about not this, but they talked about a mass extinction event in regards to younger individuals not knowing how to communicate. And COVID kind of like messed all that up, because it gave you an opportunity to retreat back into your home, and a lot of people utilize that a lot more. So communication skills kind of go out the window. Mass extinction event, but it's really turning into, when we're looking through the lens of AI, it's like technological natural selection. So it's like, if people can hop on the bandwagon of technology growth and cyborg, essentially like it's plugging things into your head, you can adapt with that. You're going into the path of, at least maybe, I don't know, maybe it could go the other way, but you're going to the path of natural selection for staying alive. It's kind of like Darwin's finches or whatever. You have the different finches on the different islands that adapted to those ecosystems, and the ones that didn't, they died off. So that's essentially what this is going to be. It's going to be like a technological, commercial, natural selection type of event, and I think it's going to happen. I think it's going to happen a lot faster than we think. Get ready and just
Well,
learn how to think.
I think we are ready. So maybe that's a good way to wrap this episode up. And that is, if you need assistance, Neuro is anything you need it to be. And we are neuro.is.
Absolutely. Yes, sir. All right. Well, good stuff. I always enjoy nerding out over AI, and I'm down to do it again whenever you are. But great episode. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to this week's Caffeinated Business Report. If you have any topics that you would like, our in-depth insight into, my younger insights and my father's older insights, whether from his long career as an entrepreneur, feel free to let us know on LinkedIn. We're both on there. Whether you're looking up Chase Henderson or Craig Paceris Henderson, one of the two. And until next time, see you later.